What if your content could not only attract attention, but also influence action? Today on the search bar, we're diving deep into the intersection of psychology and SEO. I'm Eric Ritter, and in this episode, we're pulling back the curtain on how powerful strategic writing can elevate your brand, boost your search rankings, and persuade your audience to click, read, and convert. I'm really excited for today's episode because I'm being joined by Alison for Halen, a content strategist and SEO copywriter who brings together a rare mix of English major storytelling and psychology-backed persuasion. What started as a favor for writing blog posts for a family friend's law firm turned into a full-time business and a mission to help brands connect through words that work. Stick around to the end because Alison is dropping gems on how to blend data and emotion and how SEO is evolving into something far more human. Alison, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you so much for having me and for that lovely intro. I think I'm going to have to steal that from now on. That is pretty spot on.
It's all yours. That's my gift to you for today, Alison, just for being here.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah, well, let's dive right into it. I just want to learn more about you and kind of how you got into the whole psychology behind great SEO content. So let's just start with your journey. Your background is in English and psychology, two areas we don't usually associate with marketing. So how did you actually find your way into the world of SEO content?
Completely by accident. At the time, I actually thought I wanted to, I've always loved writing growing up. Like you mentioned the storytelling of the English psychology, always wanted to be a writer. Was told growing up that writers don't make any money and I should choose a more practical career. So
Yep.
At the time, I figured, well, if I can't make a living writing books, maybe I could make a living making books. So I thought I wanted to go into publishing. Had the misfortune or fortune, depending on how you look at it, to graduate in 2009, right after the job market crashed. So there were no jobs to be had in publishing or really anywhere else. So that was fun. So ended up, answering phones for a few years, found myself between jobs at one point. And as you mentioned, it was actually my roommate at the time, her dad was awesome and offered to give me stuff to do around his office until I got back on my feet. And one of the things he needed was someone to write blog posts for his law firm. And he knew I had a strong writing background, so he offered me the gig. And I was like, really? I can get paid to write? Yeah, let's do that. So I jumped at that chance and started writing for him and then for an associate of his and then for some friends of mine. It just kept growing from there. So fast forward, I think it's been 12 or 13 years now. Here I am.
That's awesome. A lot of times people say, hey, I have experience, I know what I'm doing, but you actually have, the true kind of background. You've been doing this for a while. You started out kind of figuring it out yourself, and kind of making your own path. And, I was part of the job market too. I had just come out of college in 2008, 2009. And those weren't easy days. Those were the days where there were Twitter accounts kind of showing how ad agencies on Madison Avenue, New York City, just people were walking out by the hundreds. People were getting let go because, people weren't spending money. People weren't spending money on marketing or advertising. So kudos to you for finding your way, even through all that craziness and everything there. So awesome job.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a series of fortunate accidents.
Hey, that's usually kind of the best journey, I feel like, right? If it's just a straight line, it's no fun, right? That's what the spice of life is, kind of finding your way through different paths and avenues there. The back streets are more fun than just the main road there.
100%, yeah.
Well, let's talk about that secret sauce about that. We talk about the English psychology. So just from your perspective, what separates content that actually drives action, that gets clicks and builds trust, authority, and kind of helps someone grow, right? Because you've been doing this for a while, so would love to get your perspective on that.
I have, yeah, and there's a lot involved. So like I said, I did start doing this, I think it was 12 or 13 years ago. Very different world of SEO, right? At that point in time, we could just put up a good blog post on a regular basis and get results. It also helped that it had a fair amount of content already on the website. It wasn't good content, but there was a lot of content on there. So it didn't take much to get noticed, by Google, but also by the right people, so that when they found it and read the blog post, they were then more likely to reach out. So I think the big thing I did at that point in time was put a story to it. which lawyers are not always great at.
Nope.
They get a little into the weeds, a little into the, oh, well, I have to explain this and we want to talk about this. And they get into the really nitty gritty. And it's like, yeah, no one actually cares about that. They care about what is the problem? What happens if I don't get out of the problem? And then how do I get out of the problem and what happens then? So writing those blog posts that turned it into a story that people could follow and could apply to their own life and their own situation is what made those early blog posts really stand out and really effective. And if you had told me back then that I would need to learn SEO in order to keep doing this as a career, I would have been too intimidated to even try because, again, I was a word nerd growing up. I was not a numbers. I avoided numbers as much as I could. So if you told 10-year-old Alison now that she's grown up is now like, let's open another spreadsheet and look at some more numbers and data, she'd be like, something went horribly wrong. But again, it's all about the story. So fortunately, I stumbled into it when someone sent me, just for fun, I guess, had done some keyword research for me, and they sent me a screenshot. And I was like, wait, people are looking for this word more than this word, even though they mean basically the same thing. And then I was fascinated. So that was kind of it for me. I was down the rabbit hole and never really found my way back out. And yeah, SEO changes so fast that it has been something that I've learned on the job, on the fly, trying to keep up with the updates. We just had another one as we're recording. Right. So
rolling out.
Yeah, rolling one out as we speak. So yeah, it's been fascinating to keep up with all of that. But like you said, Google is really getting better at identifying the human content and what is it that the humans actually want. Google has never really lost sight of, we're trying to serve our users. What are our users looking for? So from a marketing and an SEO perspective, yes, there are certain things you have to do to make Google happy. Most of it makes sense. Some of it does not, but whatever, we got to go with it if we want to get results. So it's all about what are the questions your target audience is asking and how can you frame it in a way that makes sense? And like you said, get clicks. I mean, it has to have the right keywords in there so Google will rank it, but it also has to have an emotional component. It has to motivate people to click and look through at your content. If you think about any time you go looking for something and you Google something and you look at the headlines and do I want to click through and read this and possibly have to sift through content to find what it is exactly that I'm looking for? It doesn't sound like a big investment, but again, consider all of the demands on our time, all of the content being pushed at us. We do spend at least a second or two weighing the pros and cons there. Am I going to click through? So you have to make it really powerful and really motivating to get them to click through. And the biggest thing is it has to make a promise about what they're going to get when they click through and when they get that content. And then the content has to deliver on that promise. If those two are not aligned, you're going to lose them. And eventually Google will figure that out because Google tracks clicks and bounces and all that. So if it sees a lot of people bouncing back from your website, that's going to impact your search rankings in a negative way eventually.
Yeah, I mean, you said so much good stuff there, but just to kind of go off what you said at the end there, I've been thinking a lot about the concept of like SEO and search everywhere, like you mentioned, right? You see something that intrigues you, you click on it, and then whatever's behind there needs to pay it off, right? So I was reading an article a while ago, and I finally put it together that this is what frickin' Netflix does, right? So Netflix tests out different tiles for its shows and movies to different people, right? And so if I like a movie, right, if it's shown to me, it might be the male lead because that might be something I click on. If you, same thing, you're in Netflix and you might see the female lead because that's something you're going to click on, right? So they're trying to kind of, their call to action is geared towards you to click on it. But then also once you click on it, the movie or the show behind there needs to pay it off because that's how Netflix makes their money, right? Like if you click and then you're not watching, you're going to quit watching, you're going to unsubscribe, right? And even take it further, same on a YouTube video, that YouTube thumbnail is what people click on. So that's what you need to optimize, like the thumbnail, right? And you always see they're starting to kind of look the same where it has like a big graphic and a big headline, right? And then again, it has to pay it off. Whatever it says, like, hey, make money today or whatever it is, right? And if I click on it and that the first couple minutes don't pay that off and I'm not learning how to make money today, I'm not going to watch it again. And YouTube sees that in the algorithm. Same thing with SEO, right? People, they see the result, they click on it, they read the article. Google's tracking us through Chrome, through analytics, through the Android, whatever, right? They know what we're doing on the website. And if we're bouncing around and not consuming that content, that's going to hurt your rankings. You need to make that emotional connection, get people hooked with the logic. It all needs to be in that piece of content. Sometimes that's why I'm not a content writer, Alison, because it's so much, right, that you need to get into that piece of content for it to really work. So a lot of different pieces that you need to check off there from a strategy standpoint. And I think you laid them out perfectly there. So thank you.
100%. Yeah, happy to. Like I said, I could geek out about this all day.
I can tell you have the background, you have the expertise about it, which I think is great, right? Because that copy needs to address so many different pain points, need to answer the questions, needs to guide readers to that next step, right? And that's really the simple formula,
100%.
But I want to talk about mistakes brands make with content strategy, because it's always fun to talk about kind of mistakes and, kind of what other people's are doing. So I would love to hear from you if you know any kind of mistakes, maybe even common mistakes that you see out there that businesses make when they're creating content, that written content for their website.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, where do I even begin? I think
you opening a can of worms here.
I know. So you mentioned mistakes with content strategy. And for me, what pops out, I think, is not having a strategy is one of the biggest mistakes. People know they need content. They know Google lives on content. They know they need it. They don't really think about what it's going to do. I think they've just heard we need content. Okay, let's put out content without thinking about who their target audience is, what they're searching for, what the buyer journey looks like. That's where my psychology degree really comes in handy is, all right, we got them. Now what? And I think for a lot of people, and depending on your industry, this can work. Just get them to the blog post. Okay, here's my thing, buy my thing. Some industries that works. With lawyers, that doesn't work. With finance people, that doesn't work. With marketers, that doesn't always work. It takes a while to earn people's trust and to get them on the phone. I refer to that as proposing on the first date, right? They just found their way to your website. They're just learning a little bit about who you are and what you do. And you pop the question and they're like, whoa, this is way too much, way too soon. So having that call to action is so important. It's also the hardest. Like, I don't want to minimize how tricky it can be to get something that's right on the right level, right? You want them to commit to something, but not too big, not too little. So getting them either on your newsletter, signing up for your webinar, following you on social media, whatever that next step is, make sure that it makes sense and it's something that will push them a little further down the buyer journey, so you can eventually get them to reach out for the consultation or buy your thing or whatever that final step is. But make sure that it makes sense for where they are currently, which can be tricky, especially with blogging, because with your blog, you do usually have people who are finding you for the first time and people who've been reading you for a while. So trying to find that balance is hard, but always understand your target audience first and foremost. That's another one, like I was saying, with the lawyers who get into the weeds, and we all do this because we're all in it all day, every day. So we get really excited about something and we want to get into it. And we forget that our audience doesn't actually care. So we really have to keep them first and foremost in our minds in terms of what is it that they want? What are they looking for? What's the language that they use? How can we convince them this is important? Because, and I've been guilty of this too, of course SEO is important. Of course content is important. How can you not know how important it is? Lots of people don't understand. So getting them to understand, critical, because if they don't care, they're not going to click and they're not going to take the next step. So having that story and that emotional component is crucial. And consistency is the other one, especially for solopreneurs and small business owners who are doing their own content, who might try blogging for a little bit. And then if they A, they don't see immediate results, so they give up. Or B, they get busy and forget about it, and it's the last thing on their to-do list, so it never happens. So being consistent is crucial to earning Google's trust, but also keeping those prospects who have found you, keeping them engaged so that you can, again, lead them to the next step in the buyer journey. And the next time you have a dry spell, when they're ready to buy, they'll buy from you because while you were busy, they kept reading all of your content.
Yeah, I mean, so that's such a great point with the consistency, right? It can be so hard because, sometimes the last thing on your to-do list, you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you got all the other things to do, paying taxes, running payroll, all those things. And so it just sometimes falls off kind of your to-do list there. But I'm wondering if you have any recommendations for cadence, right? Should I be blogging once a week, once a month, a couple times a week? What's a good cadence for someone?
It depends. First and foremost, I would say at a minimum, no less than once per month. Any less, let's be honest, if you're not doing it once a month, you're not doing it. I talk to a lot of people who are like, oh, I'll do a blog quarterly. And it's like, yeah, no, you're not really doing that. But also it's not frequently enough for Google to take notice, much less the people who are getting notifications from you or going to your website. So at least once a month, preferably twice a month. I used to do every week, and I kept up with every week for a while until I got busy, and it was like, yeah, this is not sustainable anymore, especially as I was investing more in the longer, more in-depth pieces of content, the like 1,000, 2,000 word pieces. It's like, yeah, okay, if I'm going to put this much time and effort into a piece, I can't do it every week. So
well, is it better to have longer pieces of content or shorter pieces of content?
I would say it's better to have a mix. Definitely invest in the longer content up front. This is another strategy that's really awesome that not a lot of people are aware of or take advantage of, is having your 3 or 4 core topics and writing a really long, in-depth piece of content on that topic. And then you can write shorter pieces on subtopics later that all link back to that longer piece of content. That becomes what we call the pillar content, and the subtopics are the topic clusters that support the pillars. So that ends up with you've got this really long, juicy piece of content. Google loves that. Google's going to sit up and pay attention. And then you've got all these internal links leading from your shorter pieces to that really long piece. And when I say shorter pieces, I mean, like, please don't write anything less than like 500 words, because again, it's not really that much, but also Google likes stuff 500 words and longer.
And that's always changing too. Like, I feel like when I started in SEO, it was 300 words, right?
Yeah.
But it was also keyword stuffing. We need to get the keyword in there at least once. We need to get the keyword in there 3 times, and a good keyword to word ratio was 100 to 1. So the math was 300 words. We put the keyword in 3 times, we're good to go, right? And then we're talking about keyword stuffing, which we don't do anymore.
Right.
So like you started off earlier saying, things are always changing. There's new algorithm updates. You got to stay on top of those. But the one thing that stuck out as you were talking about strategy is the Goldilocks principle, right? You need to get it just right. You don't want it too long. You don't want it too short. You don't want it too big, too small, too hot, too cold. You need to get it just right based on your target audience.
100%. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about using content to convert, right? We're talking about the customer journey, and content is great to bring people to the website, right? It's great to keep people interested in reading, but beyond getting that visibility, getting those impressions, getting the readers, getting maybe people reading the newsletter, how do you get great content that helps generate real results, real leads for people, Alison?
Yeah, again, it all comes back to your target audience. Who are they? What do they care about? What's the problem that you're solving for them? And focus on that problem, and you can choose to either twist the knife a little and let them see what this could look like if they don't solve the problem. How is this problem going to get worse? How is that going to affect their life? Or on the flip side, you can make it, here's what happens when you solve the problem. And it depends on the problem that you're solving. If you're solving something that's really painful, it can help to focus on that a little bit before going into the here's how I can help. Don't focus on it too much, because then people start to freak out. And when we freak out, we tend not to take that next step. We tend to just click away.
Overwhelmed, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So twist the knife a little bit, but then let them know it's okay. I have a solution. Just reach out. The other way to go about it is maybe you're not solving a problem, but maybe you can make their life better in some way. That's everything that we are trying to do when we click, when we go open our computer, when we do anything. It's how can I either solve a problem or make my life better in some way. I want to survive and thrive. That's it. Yeah. Those are my only goals. So how can you help them do that? And making that really clear in your content. Again, focus on that problem and what does the solution look like, and really paint that solution. Really make it look like this is what it's going to look like. This is why you see all those videos and blog posts and everything of people being like, oh, I was in this situation and it was awful, and then I did this and now I have all these wonderful things in my life, right? Because they're painting a picture for you of what it's going to look like once you buy their thing or sign up for their course or whatever the thing might be. So focus on the emotions, because we don't like to admit it, but we are emotional creatures and we buy based on emotion. So you really got to hit it home with that call to action. Have it super emotional and then the call to action.
Love it. Yeah. Some of us are just better at suppressing emotions than others, but we're all very emotional.
We're all very emotional. And, we say we make judgments based on logic when really we use logic to justify the decision we've already made emotionally.
That makes so much sense. Yeah. I would love to kind of get even a little bit deeper here, Alison. I'm just curious if you maybe have a case study or a client success story where the right content actually made a difference.
Yeah. Well, that first client that I had, that lawyer that I was writing for, like I said, it was like, I think we started with 2 and then we went up to 4 blog posts per month. And after 6 months, he came back and told me that I had brought in $75,000 worth of business to his law firm just through the blog post I was writing for him. And
that was awesome.
That was like my first clue of like, oh, he's not just doing me a favor and giving me busy work. Like this is having a real result for his business. So that was the light bulb moment for me of, oh, there's something to this.
Yeah. That's awesome. So like you said, it's not just informative content, actually moves people to kind of take that next step, right? That clear messaging, making sure that you're hitting on the target audience's pain point, showing them a solution and leading them to that solution, which you offer them.
100%. Yes.
That's cool. That's very cool. So SEO plus call to action, conversion, targeted copy equals more qualified leads and better ROI. Can we say that's a good formula? I know we both aren't math majors, as you said earlier. Me neither, right? I always like to say to anybody out there listening, if you're in college, if you're in high school, embrace Excel, embrace spreadsheets. I did not. And I wish I had, right? I was a PowerPoint kind of kid, I'm dating myself here. That's what I would do, right? Like I did everything in PowerPoint. I enjoyed it. I could move the boxes around, the text boxes, could put different colors and everything. And Excel was just kind of like this foreign, weird thing out there. Nowadays, like probably, I don't even know what the percentage is, but the vast majority of everything I do is in a spreadsheet, and I love it. So I don't know.
Isn't that weird? Yeah. I think the same thing at the time. I was like, I can fill in cells and make rows and columns, and that's about it.
Yeah. Right. And then, and I remember like my dad was trying to show me, he's like, because I was collecting baseball cards. He's like, look, you can put in your baseball cards and how much they're worth. And you can add up how much they're all worth. And I'm like, okay, that's great. I know how to sum up these numbers, but that's about it. So at least my dad tried. So kudos to him.
Yeah. My dad tried too, but I was very resistant.
Yeah. I think it's easier now too. I don't know about you. So I use Google Sheets, and I just like Google Sheets so much better than Excel. I don't know if it's the user interface, the user experience of it, but for some reason, like it just clicks with my brain a little bit better than Excel. And maybe it's not as overwhelming or as intimidating,
Maybe that's it. There are a lot of bells and whistles on Microsoft Excel. I do still use Excel. I don't know why I've been resistant to move over to all the Google Docs, but
hey, that's why they have different types of software out there, right? There's, for different people out there. I always like to give the golf example. That's why there's like 1,000 different putters out there for the golfers out there, because everybody wants a little bit of a different putter because I have a little bit of a different outlook there. And that's why so many exist, because everybody's a little bit different, right? Some people want Excel, some people want Google Docs. I don't know if there's what's it called? Apple has one that no one ever uses, but it comes pre-installed on your Mac. I'm trying to look at I've probably removed it, so I can't even find it. I was looking near my dashboard, but I don't have it. But anyway, so there's different alternatives out there, but I think it boils down to Excel and Sheets. So would love to hear, if anybody out there has any tips or tricks for Sheets or Excel that they really like, send them my way, because I'm always happy to learn something new.
Same here. Yes.
Yeah. Please. So let's get into the checklist. I always like ending the episode, Alison, with a tangible checklist that we will post as well, put in the show notes. So if you're not paying attention, now is the time to perk up. This is the important stuff, right? Want to have a go-to SEO and copywriting checklist. Mm-hmm. We got 5 different points that people can follow for brands who want to not just connect, get impression, but actually want to convert and reach their goals. So we'll just go through them here. We got 5 of them. Number 1 is start with strategy. Something that you talked about, Alison, right? Who are you talking to and what do they care about, right? So you got to understand that as the strategy, right? You said that's a mistake a lot of people make. They don't start off and understand their target audience.
100%. Yeah. Understand your target audience. I always like to start super simple. If you're just starting, figuring out who your target audience is. If you have a few clients, look at your favorite clients. Who do you like to work with, and what are the similarities between the people that you work with? If you don't have any clients yet, think about that. Think about who you want to work with and what gets you excited. I love spying on the competition, seeing who are your competitors, what are they doing on social media, who's following them on social media, and then look at their followers and see the other accounts that they're following, so you can get a fuller picture of who they are and what interests them, because that's when you'll find not just the companies that they're following, but maybe you'll find out that they're a Star Wars person or a dog person, or they live in a certain area, or they vacation in certain places, or that's what's really going to get you that juicy information that gives you an idea of who these people are as people rather than just as numbers.
I love that. So that's such great insight. And just a really quick aside is, I don't know if anybody's ever used or if you've heard of SparkToro. SparkToro is a great tool. It's kind of like a keyword research tool, but you can put in who you're trying to go after, and it shows you their interests, right? It shows you what YouTube channel they follow, what subreddits they're active in, what podcasts they listen to. And so I find that really interesting because it takes it that next step beyond just keyword research, understanding what makes them tick. What are they interested in? So that's such great advice, Alison, right? Not looking at the competitors, looking at what they're interested in, kind of being a little bit of PI there, kind of private investigator, and understanding them so that you can create content that's really going to resonate with them.
100%. Yes.
Awesome. So number 2, keywords are going to always be the foundation. They're always going to be there. They're kind of clues, right? You want to understand the audience. You mentioned it earlier, what they're searching for, right? It's kind of that balance, right? You want to understand what they're searching for, what they're interested in, but you also don't want to overdo it, right? You don't want to just put in the keyword and just put it everywhere. It just should be kind of that clue to what they're interested in.
Yeah. So another big mistake I see people making, just because they don't understand, is not putting the keywords in the right places. So I mentioned having the keyword in the title is super important. So think anytime you search something and you see the list of links on Google, if you don't see what you just searched in the title, are you going to click through it? Or at least in the meta description?
Yeah.
It might not be in the title, but it should be in the meta description. If it's not in either of those places, you're not going to click through. So make sure that you have the keywords in the title and the meta description, preferably, again, throughout the content, not too often. As you said, we don't want to keyword stuff, but also, have some related keywords. So that you're not just targeting one keyword per piece, you're targeting several keywords, because that gives you a better chance of showing up for a variety of searches instead of just one. And Google is getting better at taking more of a holistic look at content and seeing it's no longer just looking at the one keyword. It's going, oh, they've got this keyword and this term over here, and people are searching for these different terms. And okay, this is what this content is really about. Google is also getting better at understanding synonyms. So even if it's not a great keyword, like I said, if it means basically the same thing, like lawyer versus attorney is one that I deal with a lot because I deal with a lot of lawyers, right?
Yeah.
You can use those words interchangeably and Google understands that they mean the same thing. So don't be afraid to dig into those synonyms. Don't be afraid like, oh, but it's not a good keyword. If it's a synonym for a good keyword, Google will figure it out. Google is getting better at that.
100%, right? And it's about, again, creating that balance and becoming an authority on that topic. And one way to be an authority is not just thinking about it one way, but looking at it different ways, right? But you got to be careful there, because a lot of times I see articles that just you can tell they're just stretched and lengthy for a certain reason. Like if you're buying a car, right? They're going to go into, what you should do in car. This is why you should buy a new car, da, 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 da. Like all these things that are somewhat related, but not 100%. And you lose people, right? And so you want to make sure that you are creating that authoritative content that covers it from all angles, but also that it is still relevant, so that's kind of that balance that you want to strive there, which brings me to number 3, which I'm calling structure for scanners. And that's particularly for me, right? So I'm someone, when I get I pull up a web page, I pull up an article, I'm going to scan through, I'm going to look at the headings, I'm going to look at the bullet points, and kind of look at those short paragraphs. And, I sometimes, and I hope I'm not alone in this, I will read the last paragraph first, right? Because I want to see the conclusion. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's how I cook it. Or that's going to be the end result of all this. This is what the beautiful cake's going to look like. Let me go back and look at the recipe, right? And so you want to make it clearly digestible for people like me and others. No pun intended on the cake, right? So you want to make sure that piece of content is structured in a way that it's easy to follow, easily understandable, and it's not just what I like to call a wall of text. Like if I see a wall of text, I'm going to leave and I'm going to find something else that makes it easy for me, because we're all busy. We want to get to the point, but we also want to make sure that balance, again, that it's to the point, that we understand it, but that it's still the authority behind it, right? It's kind of like in math, you get you get the math problem, you got the answer, cool, but how did you get to the answer? You still got to show the work.
100%. Yeah. Everything you just said. Yes to all of it. So I get this question a lot because we talked earlier about longer content versus shorter content. And like I said, for me, it's not versus, you got to use both of them. A lot of people are in this, oh, no one reads longer content. That's not true. It is and it isn't. The data shows that the longer content is, the more people do spend engaging with it. So give your audience a break. If they're interested and they really want to learn, yes, they will spend more time with that content. But the flip side is, like you said, there are the scanners. There are the people who want to come to a piece of content and find what they're looking for right away. So yeah, I always have subheadings, which again, even if people are reading everything, give them subheadings just to break it up and give their brain a little bit of a break. I love reading, but even if I go to a website and I see just a giant block of text, I will click away. I will go, I don't know if I have time for this. So yeah, it's about the subheadings. I always have a table of contents right at the top, right? So there's the title, the banner image.
Good piece of advice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have the intro. Here's what we're talking about. Here's why. And then the table of contents has all of those subheadings that you're going to see if you scroll down, but you don't have to scroll down. If you see something in there and you go, oh, that's the specific piece of information I want, you can click on it and it will take you straight to that piece. It'll scroll all the way down for you. So that's another thing that I do to make the scanning easier and make it easier for people who are looking for something specific. So the people who want to dive in and know it all, they are welcome to dive in and know it all. But if someone just wants something specific, they can get to it really quickly and easily. And yeah, make it quick and easy for people to find what they're looking for, because that's how you're going to engage those people. If they don't find what they're looking for right away, we are increasingly a species that is looking for instant gratification, right? If we don't get what we want right away, we're going to click away and find it with someone who can give it to us right away. So make it super quick and easy. So yeah, I always have that table of contents with the links that takes them straight there.
Yeah, and I think that's increasingly important for kind of the evolving SEO. And we didn't get into it in this episode, the AI landscape, right? That Google and the AI tools aren't just looking at the entire page anymore, right? They've evolved to the point where they can actually look at individual sections, individual paragraphs, and rank those individually. So putting in that table of contents, breaking up logically helps, whatever it's search GPT or if it's, AI overviews from Google, it helps it really understand that. And that way you can rank, if you have a long article, with 10 different paragraphs, one of those paragraphs could be that position 0 at the top, could be in AI overviews, could be in search GPT because you've structured it correctly. So that's such a good point, Alison. It's not just for the reader, which is obviously you want to write it for the reader first, but also for the spiders, right? Or whatever we call them, the crawlers from Google and ChatGPT are able to pull out those individual sections because of that.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen that where I search something and when I end up clicking on something, Google takes me straight to like the middle of the article where that specific question is getting answered. So how that helps. Having those links throughout your article helps Google do that. For
sure. So we talked about it before, just rounding off the checklist number 4 and 5. Number 4 is speak to pain points, right? So just make sure when you're writing the piece of content, you said it beautifully earlier, Alison, right? It's you want to emphasize, you want to educate and offer a solution. And I don't want to misquote you, but it was something along the lines, put the knife in, but not too far with the pain point, right? Which I thought makes so much sense.
Yeah, twist the knife just a little bit enough to remind them that the pain is there. Don't twist it too far because if it is something that is really scary and you really freak them out, they'll just click away and run away from the problem because as humans, that's what we tend to do. So you want to give it just enough to make them go, what? Make them sit up and pay attention. And then, here's the solution, and give them the solution and an action they can take to either solve the problem or take the next step towards solving the problem. Then on the flip side, if it is super scary, make them understand that there is a solution and a happily ever after, and paint that picture for them. You might be in this position now. You don't always have to be in this position. This could be your life, this wonderful life of me on a beach drinking a drink with an umbrella in it, right? This could be you.
That's why I always want to be like a tourism writer. Like, how cool would it be to be like, it was a while ago where they were, I think it was Australia Tourism Board was hiring someone, and their entire job was just to live on the beach in Australia and create content, right? And that's like, how hard can that be, right? To just paint that picture of like, this could be you chilling on the beach in Australia on vacation, So maybe a little bit of that kind of with whatever your product, your solution is, how do you create that picture of that beautiful beach, in someone's head? So I think that makes so much sense.
100%, yeah.
And you went there already a little bit with number 5, which is the call to action, right? Kind of that next step, right? So humans need us as humans, we need to be told what to do, right? No matter what. So if it's a piece of content, we need to tell people what to do, and some of the simple ones that I've seen that I think are really powerful is, I'll read a great article on The Verge, right? Some tech writer, and just a call to action, enjoy this article, sign up for the newsletter to get more. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to sign up for the newsletter. I enjoyed this article, right? And so it can be something as simple as that, or to your point, hey, we can, if you're an attorney, right? Like, hey, we can get you the most money for whatever, for your settlement. Click here to see how much your case is worth, right? So kind of those next steps are so important. We talked about it today quite a bit. Yeah.
So the call to action, you really want to make sure, like you said, that you have a call to action and you make it really clear and obvious and really easy to take that call to action. Because like you said, we need to be told what to do. And going back, several minutes ago, you asked about mistakes that people make. I think that is a really common one. They go, well, they're already on my website and the contact button is way up here in the corner. So they can just go there and reach out to us. People are not going to do that. Again, they might want to take action and not really be sure what to do next. Or they, like you said, they're reading an article. Yeah, it was a good article. But the article itself wasn't enough to motivate them to do something. So they'll go, okay, that was good, and then leave. And they'll have a good experience, but they won't be motivated to do something. So having that call to action, it could be as simple as sharing the article and giving them a share button so you can expand your audience. Signing up for the newsletter is a good one, because now you've got their contact information, and now you can keep pushing content in front of them, but also promote your stuff when relevant. So you always want to get that contact information when you can. Tell people what to do and make it easy. If you go here and, download this form, you just have to give us your email address. Great. Okay. Whereas download this form, or, download this thing, and you have to fill out this whole page long form to do it. People are going to be less likely to do that.
100%.
Which can actually be a good thing, again, depending on what you're doing. I've done that where I have filled out a form because I am really interested. And that can also be kind of your way of sifting through the fluff, right? Who are the people who are kind of interested but not super involved, versus who are the people who are really interested and they really want this thing. They're not going to pay for it, but they'll give you a bunch of information. So there is some strategy there. It can make sense to make them fill out a whole long form, but it doesn't always make sense to do that. So, proceed with caution there.
I couldn't agree more, right? So everything that you just said, right? And when I talk to clients, one thing I always like to talk about is that there are different types of call to actions, right? There's a more hard one like buy now, right? And that one can be really important, but not everybody's ready to buy. But to your point, maybe they want to hear more from you. So get them to sign up for the newsletter or download maybe some kind of PDF, right? Like, hey, get a comparison sheet or something. You have those kind of in between those other conversion points where, to your point, you're still getting their contact info. So you can open a conversation with them, even if they're not ready to buy today. So that's something that's important to keep in mind as well.
100%. Yes.
Awesome. Well, hey, this episode was a lot of fun, and keep in mind that your words are your brand's front door, so make them count. So a big thank you today goes out to Alison for Halen for joining us today and showing us how psychology, SEO, and storytelling are really important. And when they come together, they can create content that truly connects. If you want to learn more about Alison and her work, check out her blog. What's the URL, Alison?
URL is AV, as in my initials, Alison Verhalen. That is avwritingservices.com.
avwritingservices.com. We'll put in the show notes as well for everyone. And follow her on LinkedIn for fresh insights on content strategy and SEO that converts. And hey, if this episode made you think about your own website or blog, share it with a friend or leave us a review on your podcast app. You might just get a shout out on the next episode. And I always like to end the episode with a wine recommendation. I am the SEO sommelier after all. So for today's episode, I'm sipping something that's both bold and balanced, just like good content. It lingers, it resonates, and it leaves you wanting more. And what I'm recommending today is a Columbia Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. So anything from Columbia Valley in Washington is recommended. My personal favorite vintage is 2017. So 2017 Columbia Valley Cabernet Sauvignon is my recommendation today. Hope you guys enjoy it. So grab your glass, fire up your content counters, and let's make your brand's voice unforgettable. Cheers, everyone.